Hello again. Another book review, um, but I don't have the book with me because I actually gave it to a friend or a sibling of mine. The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy, which is more of a novella. In fact, it's actually considered kind of the prime example, an exemplary example of redundant, much of a novella because of its like still incorporating all the elements of a novel, but with all the big themes and those Russian, more wrestling with mortality. Yet it also does it in a very concise little book, and it's really easy to get through. Like some of Kafka's works, only takes a few hours, if at that. And yeah, quick synopsis of it, without giving too much away. It's about Ivan Ilyich, the namesake. I keep wanting to say Ivan Denisovich because it's another Russian novel I did recently by Solzhenitsyn. Although that one's about probably about 100 years later, maybe. So this is about a man who is a businessman, and he's very kind of carefree in the sense that, but he's very superficial, and he leads a very common life. And for Tolstoy, the narrator, from I guess from the point of view, you could argue this is Tolstoy's views too, that because of that he's also a most terrible life as well, because it's most ordinary, which is interesting. I really like that. It's a very kind of Dostoevskian type sentiment too, like the common man, the superfluous man, I guess. Well, maybe not. Not in the sense of like Fyodor Pavlovich from Brothers Karamazov, but definitely somebody who lives in excess of mundane. Like he goes to work. He has a very uncaring type of wife and family, and does the same thing every day. And all he's concerned with is climbing that social ladder, just through I don't know if this is aristocracy. I mean, this is 1880s Russia, I assume. So it's whatever it is he's doing good at it, but it's very there's no there's no like peaks or ups and downs. It's just like one trajectory. It's just like graduate from the university and attend go to be a lawyer. He's a lawyer. That's what he is. I forgot. And he's attend all these things, and you become a great mark of society, and you become an emblem, and you carry that down to your sons and daughters, and they become great lawyers, and there's very much nothing more to it than that. Like there's no musing on death. What is the purpose of this? The existential questions are completely at bay, held at just completely not there at all. And yeah, it's basically that all falls apart when at one morning he is hanging curtains, as you do in a nice little home or his nice, very probably dacha type of Russian home, because it's upper middle class. It's not very. I mean, he's not like czarist rich, I guess. He's more like kind of upper middle class, like, but he's getting there. Although who knows how much time he has left. And then he basically falls, kind of awkwardly, and hits his head in such a way that he gets this concussion that I think it does something weird to his spine or something. It's very strange. It's a very particular thing that like you wouldn't really expect happen to like be the causation of something so drastic as death, but it does. And he quickly realizes it's not just a little like a little scruff of the neck. It's not like a little bit of a skin off the old back or anything like that. It's pretty quite serious, and he's in fatal condition very quickly. And his family are all kind of like they're kind of brush it off, like I think they show that they care. They display signs that they kind of like, oh yeah, well he's our father, the patriarch, he's the patriarch of the family, but they don't really, you can tell they don't really care all that much. And yeah, he's confined to bed, and he's he goes through these different phases, like the different I've heard people either whether it's from Ernest Becker of the Dial of Death or the Kubler-Ross method, the whole model of death or whatever, there's different ways of kind of like people have, you know, structured death and stuff, but Tolstoy kind of does this in a very existential kind of a he beat the psychologist to the punch in this because it's so to the point. It's just kind of, you know, like he realizes that his time is very sparse, and that he needs to kind of make peace with that, you know, like that is that is the ultimate of utmost importance for, and all this other stuff that seems so important to him before, like, oh, climbing that ladder, and, you know, getting good recommendations at work, and trying to kind of like impress your buddies in the aristocratic sphere of, you know, that none of that matters. It means squat to him now. It's completely. That's why it's so magical the way Tolstoy describes this, because it's like you can kind of see it through his lens. You get like a very nice omniscient narrator thing going on, and very slowly, or very quickly rather, like his friends at work do take notice, or I shouldn't say friends, but kind of his kind of associates do take notice, and they're kind of like, oh, they're kind of like sniffing up his position. I think they don't really care much beyond that. They're kind of like, oh, well, this is just another position for me that is freed up, so I will just and that's kind of all they care about. Their purview does not extend beyond that. It's just kind of like, you know, very black and white, very binary. Where there's the only person that actually cares, that shows some semblance of humanity, is his butler. It's this young man that actually cares for him, and despite the stark difference between like the social status between them, there's like, you know, Tolstoy shows that doesn't really matter. You know, it shows that like because he has humanity, because he actually recognizes the severity of Ivan Ilyich's situation, that like the only thing at that point, like this is a very, very Russian type mentality too, like is just kind of, he just wants somebody to grieve with, somebody to like just cry out his humanities with, like to just like be like a dog, you know, like I don't know if he says it in the novel, but like to be like a cur, you know, like just to just all inhibitions, you know, thrown out the window. And he gets to do this with this young butler. Like he actually cares for him, not because it's like, you know, the size of his wallet or anything like that. It's like those are all totally arbitrary, moot. And his family, like they do grieve, but it's kind of in that traditional kind of closed fist, you know, that closed, you know, behind your teeth, kind of carrying that stoical type of disposition to the world, kind of just like, ooh, well, you know, I might be, you know, like his wife kind of like coldly, you know, holds his hand while he dies, and he's kind of like, and spoiler alert, like he does die. It's pretty obvious. And yeah, it's very, there's a light at the end of the tunnel though, to use the old cliche. He does see a literal light coming through while at his last moments, and though it was very, very painful, and there's like this like awful, like, you know, Tolstoy goes through like the very nitty-gritty of like what one would be experiencing close to death. And yeah, when the grim reapers nigh, he shows that they're shortly following that. There's like, you know, there's like a, you know, a glowing, like you know, like ethereal light that he sees, like this like grand vision, and that is like worth it all, you know. And like he doesn't know what's beyond that, like the mystery of like the afterlife, like what is there, like is there a soul? But in this, like Tolstoy, being an Orthodox Christian himself, very, you know, traditional, in that sense, like he says that, oh, well, Ilyich's soul is taken from his body and goes transmuted to heaven, and it is all a happy ending after all, because what he gaineth in life, you know, all these things and stuff, he doesn't actually have in heaven. Whereas, like, you know, like it's basically his priorities were totally out of whack. Like he should have cared for the smaller things, like the kind of, you know, not like things like, and as much as this was written like 150 years ago, it really makes you think that it fits pretty snugly in today's standards, right? Because you see so much superficiality and kind of like just chasing the dollar, and when it's not living for money, it's living kind of for, I don't know, influencer status, like, you know, like, and this is on, there's varying levels, and I probably suffer just as much as this as anybody else, but like the whole like, am I good enough? Do I look good enough? Like, am I broadcasting my life to everybody at all times? And how am I adding up in that social sphere, in the climate out there or online or wherever? And yeah, it's like very that Tolstoy's mentality. Like, he's not dogmatically Christian about it. Like, he's not saying like, oh my god, but he is saying like that is, similar to Dostoevsky or even Turgenev, despite their differences. It kind of reminded me a bit of Fathers and Sons at the end, when like it's you kind of see Bazarov like in his final moments, like he finally shows like he kind of goes against his nihilism, and he's like, no, I actually do care about this one girl, and you kind of see a similar thing here. Like, this person, like, it's that classic Dostoevskian in The Idiot, which I'd really like to review soon. By fear I won't do it justice. It's this, Mishkin, when he's talking about the guillotine and people, and when they're men that he knew that were what's the word? Exonerated, I guess, at the last minute, when they were they were spared their lives and from the guillotine, and in that final moment they recall like every single last thing matters, like from the glimmering of a spire of a church or a citadel far off, and from the exact temperature, the exact smell of your final toilet or something like that. Like, everything is like, even though it's like a tiny little moment, that envelops everything. So that's such as you see with Ivan Ilyich. And Tolstoy, though being born more into kind of a rich, nobler class himself, being a count, Lev Tolstoy, he was all too familiar with that too, like kind of like the woes of that upper middle class as well, and he kind of wrestled with that too. But that didn't mean that he didn't go about it superficially. Like, he wrestled with death. Like, if you read the Confession, which is an excellent, very confessional, obviously, essay. I think I guess I'd call it an essay by Tolstoy, from just like him, no narrator, no, just like straight to the point from the man himself. And yeah, he just pours out everything, and he's just like, this is what I've searched all my life since, as far back as I can remember, what death is, what does it mean, like, when, the final moment, like, how do we prepare for that, like, God and all that. Like, I've talked to the finest physicists in Russia, and like, due to my nobility, that I've been able to, this is paraphrasing obviously, that because he was able to afford some of them, and they couldn't come up with anything. The finest doctors and scientists couldn't come up with anything. So it's like, is there a soul, basically, is his question. So yeah, very intense stuff. And yeah, there's this I forgot, I'm probably leaving something out that I wanted to say, but yes, I highly recommend it. Quick read, like I said, and yeah, probably forgetting something there, but yeah.